Like many of you, I have friends who on the new year happily embrace any number of customs, some would say they're superstitions, which they hope will influence the remaining 364 days thereafter, such as eating long noodles for a long life, or filling one's pockets with coins and then jumping up and down to jingle them, clearly to affirm wealth and prosperity. And perhaps you have your own ways to try to shape the future, but have you ever felt that the universe was sending you a sign? On Monday, the first day of the new year, I was up early to make a plane home. By 5 a.m., I had packed and put the luggage in the trunk. And when I got to the garage exit, I swiped my pass, as I had done repeatedly during my stay, but the barrier, you know, that mechanical arm, didn't budge. A moment of unnecessary stress. And ultimately, I arrived at the airport to find that at such an early hour, the revolving doors were not yet unlocked. So I had to find a traditional door, which opened in the typical way. Inconvenient. And because I already had my boarding pass, I went right to security, where I was informed I had to go back to the airline counter because something was amiss, but they couldn't tell me what. And finally, I boarded, and there was a mechanical delay. And the only response I had left was, "Oi." So you tell me, between the garage, the closed door, the boarding pass, the mechanical delay, was I ignoring or missing the very clear and obvious signs that I would have been better off to have gone back to bed and extend my stay? So here's hoping that the superstition about how the new year begins doesn't portend how the year will actually go. But at this time of the year when resolutions abound, when hope for a brighter future is bountiful and change seems possible, we may ask, do we shape our path or are we shaped by it? Torah invites us to consider that same question, and tradition explains it like this. In the Torah, between the book of Genesis, which was completed last week, and the book of Exodus, whose adventures and challenges lie ahead, is a large white space. And that gap functions as a placeholder, yes, but it is also an invitation to pause, to consider how to fill that extra empty space if we choose to. What will it take for us to bridge it, to move from where we have been to where we want to go, from who we are right now to who we hope to become? What will that journey look like? Tradition further explains that there is more to Torah than the deeply inked black letters which stand out against a stark white background. Simeon ben Lakish teaches that Torah is not simply what we see, ink on parchment, but it is fire, black fire written upon white fire. Yes, the black letters convey content, but it is the negative space, the white background, where meaning continues to evolve, where we bring in what is missing, whether it is the voices of those who are absent from the text or interpretations that are specific to our time or to who we are. Every consideration further undergirds the letters upon which the text is written, strengthening our tradition anew. Like the optical illusion, where one's perception sometimes offers an image of a vase, and then moments later what we thought was a vase is transformed into a face, tradition teaches that there is room for us in the open space between the letters. Like the Rorschach test, who we are influences what we see. The book of Exodus opens with all of this: open space, fire, and an unmistakable sign when Moses encounters the burning bush. Moses was pasturing his flock in an open space when he came upon an unusual sight. The Midrash tells us that Moses wasn't the only one to have come upon the bush. He was unique in that he paused to observe it. The biblical scholar Nahum Sarna observed, "To see that a bush is on fire is easy. To see that it is not consumed takes time and patience. Both are qualities which are in short supply these days." Or as Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote more poetically, "Earth is crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit around it and pluck blueberries." Torah captured Moses' wonder when he said, "I must turn aside to look at this marvelous sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up?" And only then, after Moses turned, once he was able to discern something extraordinary in the ordinary, did God call him, not once, but twice, saying, "The ground upon which you stand is holy, Moses. Take off your shoes." To which Moses responded, "Hineni, here I am." According to Rabbi Norman Cohn, this one word, hineni, connotes three main sentiments. First is the ability to be present for and receptive to the other. Second, the word indicates the readiness to act on behalf of the other. And finally, hineni at times indicates the willingness to sacrifice for someone or something higher. Moses didn't hesitate. "Here I am." He couldn't know how that brief encounter would determine the rest of his life. Seen in his clear answer, the white spaces of possibility danced between the Hebrew letters that spelled hineni. Yet when he learned what God wanted him to do, to stand up to Pharaoh and his abusive regime, fear and doubt made Moses balk. "Who am I? Who am I to go to Pharaoh and free the Israelites from Egypt?" Well, Moses had reason to find excuses, because his speech impairment pained him, because he had once been a prince and now was a shepherd, because God intended to send him back to the place from which he had fled. Moses shrank from this sacred responsibility. Yet having experienced the burning bush, Moses couldn't ignore the sense of purpose that had been ignited within him. He had been transformed. In the painted prayer book, this blessing at the burning bush appears. You will have to decide if you want this. Want the blessing that comes to you on an ordinary day when you are minding your own path, bent on the task before you that you have done 100 times, 1,000. You will have to choose for yourself whether you will attend to the signs, whether you will open your eyes to the searing light, the heat, whether you will open your ears, your heart to the voice that knows your name, that tells you this place where you stand, this ground so familiar and therefore unregarded, is in fact holy. You will have to discern whether you have defenses enough to rebuff the call, excuses sufficient to withstand the pull of what blazes within you, whether you will hide your face, will turn away, back toward what exactly? No path from here could ever be ordinary again, could ever become unstrange to you, whose seeing has been scorched beyond all salving. You will know your path not by how it shines before you, but by how it burns within you, leaving you whole, as you go from here blazing with your inarticulate, your inescapable yes. When we pause long enough to consider the burning issues in our own lives, the questions we ask ourselves today are as old as Moses. Who am I? What greater purpose calls me to set aside my own hesitation to respond? Who am I but a parent seeking to raise children who will bring healing to our world? Who am I but a child trying to bring dignity and kindness to parents as they age? Who am I but one who tries to balance the disparate parts of daily life, work and home, against the constraints of time and health and responsibilities? Who am I but a single member of the larger Jewish family, scattered among the nations, yet still deeply connected? But if we rest there, asking only who am I, and fail to ask who do I want to become, we may overlook the burning bushes that are all around, and the potential to be transformed by that encounter. Our own white spaces of possibilities invite us to shape them with meaning, if only we see the signs. In this new year, may we be blessed by the potential for transformation. Shana Tova.